and what we would love to see our churches, our divisions, our unions, our conferences also implement. If you saw somebody on a train, I've ridden a train in Korea, all the way from one airport to another, and you see people, and you saw someone who looked very, very hurt. They looked very depressed. Would you hand them your church bulletin? Does that make sense? If somebody seemed like they needed help with how to function in their lives, they were having a problem raising children or whatever, would you hand them the church manual? No, because those are not the things that help people. The things that help people are having a relationship with God. Yet, on most of our social media platforms, that is what we do. We have treated our social media like a church bulletin. It's an announcement, and an announcement, and an announcement. But the problem is that people are coming to look at your church pages, and they may have no hope. They may not know what they want to do in their lives. And our social media pages must be about proclamation. This is the sole focus, I believe, of what our church pages should be. So as a general conference, for many years, our strategy was very similar to this. We let you know what was happening in the divisions. We let you know what was happening at the local unions. We might tell you about a family ministries event. But if somebody looks now who understands who Adventism is, as you saw from the funnel, they start coming, they start to know about the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and they type into Facebook, Seventh-day Adventist. They are not going to find their nearest church. They are going to find the World Church Adventist pages. And if when they go there, they find out about a business meeting we had or about a church manual correction, is that going to excite them? No. So we realized very quickly we had to change what we were doing. Because when people come to look for the church, we have to be proclaiming the gospel message. So there are 3 things that the church has decided that we must focus in on. The first one is we must help them know God. This is actually not just a problem with people who understand who the church is. This is even a problem within our own church. There are many people who come to church, but they don't necessarily know God intimately. We need to help transform their lives. So when we help them to know God, we need to help them know how powerful prayer is, how to pray. We need to talk to them about how to have a devotional life. How many of you have been told that you should have a devotional time every day? But then how many of you have actually been taught how to read your Bible? How many of you have been taught how to take a verse and apply it to your life? We are asking people to have a relationship with God without giving them the tools that they need to do so. So the Adventist Church pages will help people to know God intimately, to have a transformational relationship with Him. The second thing that they do, after knowing God, we need to help them know their Bible. Bible illiteracy is at an all-time high. If you go and you talk to people about what are the 66 books of the Bible, many cannot name them, let alone name them in order. Is 1 Corinthians in the New Testament or the Old Testament? If you ask them about Bible stories and Bible characters, they may get their facts a little skewed with Veggie Tales or whatever other popular thing is out there. The problem is that we do not know our Bibles intimately. So we must help people know their Bibles. But it's not just enough to know about the Bible and the stories in it. We must also help them move from the milk to the meat. We need to proclaim the good news that we have been given. We need to share the 3 angels' message. We need to be able to share the sanctuary message, the investigative judgment. It's a doctrine of freedom. It's not something to fear. Are we talking about the Sabbath in a world that is filled with anxiety and stress and chaos? The Sabbath is the greatest gift that God has given mankind. Are we just wishing people happy Sabbath, or are we inviting them to open the gift? We need to have apologetics. We need to defend the faith in a world that is so divisive, where it is saying that any truth can be your truth. We must represent the truth. We must defend God's word in a land where everything can be anything. So we must help people know God intimately. We must help them to know the Bible and have it transform their lives. And lastly, we need to help them know who the church is. If you saw the funnel, you understand the concept of what we are doing. Our job as a church, if you are in communication department, if you're at a local church level, our job is to help move C's to A's. We move people who know about Adventism to be missional. They can know God, they can know the Bible, but they must know his church. And we should not be ashamed to call ourselves the remnant church. If we believe this is our message, then why are we as scared to proclaim it? So what I want to encourage is this is where news comes in. We kind of wonder, we back and forth, like, where does news come in? This shows people a world church family that they can be a part of. When I grew up, I knew I was a part of a world church family. I was a Seventh-day Adventist, but I really didn't understand what that fully meant. And I went and I got married, and my husband worked for a publishing house, and I was in the Adventist bubble my entire life. But then I went to a GC session. And for the first time in my life, I truly understood what it meant to be a global church family. I told my children who were with me, they were like 8, 6, and 4. I said, everybody you meet is your brother or sister. Every person you meet, I want you to find out what country they're from, where they go to church. Ask them whatever questions you want. And my youngest daughter would run up to random strangers, and she'd be like, where are you from? The first person we met was from Libya. My kids didn't even know where Libya was, but they now knew that they had a sister in Libya who took the time to stop and pray with my children. My daughter is now at Andrews University studying digital communication because apparently the apple does not fall far from the tree. And I text her every day. And she texts me. And she will just text me simple sayings, Mama, I love you. Or sometimes she'll ask me to help solve a problem, or she wants to show me her new haircut, whatever it may be. But imagine if my daughter went away and I never heard from her again. We would be disconnected. We wouldn't have a relationship. News is what keeps the family together. It's our love letter to our world church family. So on our social media pages, we post these love letters. We let people see the church as the very best that it can be. You know, oftentimes people judge the church by the worst person in the church. Have you ever seen it? You could have a church of 100 people who are brilliant and beautiful and kind and loving, and one person can say something bad. And now all of a sudden, Adventists are mean. I went to this church and this person did blah, 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 you know? You've seen this. Why are we not judging it by how God transforms us into the best we can be? Our news is that love story. It is that love letter to our church family. But on top of that, we need to help people understand our church structure. They need to be able to understand what they are going to become a part of. Sam has ANN In Depth, which is a weekly program where he interviews different leaders and he helps reveal the structure and the breakdowning the breaking down of like, how does treasury work? How does our tithe dollars work? When you come into our church, if you watch that program, you'll know exactly how our church operates. And it'll be from the leaders' mouths. We have ANN profiles where we are interviewing leaders in the general conference, and we're hearing their life stories, their testimonies of how God moved from when they were kids to when they are in their general conference position. How did God bring them from here to there? So we have to help people know God. We have to help them know the Bible. We have to help them know His church. So what does this mean, though, on a more local level? Because it's great for me to tell you our strategy, but how do we implement this on different levels? At a local church, it's not much different. You help people know God. You help them know the Bible. And actually, it's okay for you to post announcements about what's happening in your church, but they're not for your members. They're for others in your community to know what your church is a part of. It's a whole different kind of a mindset. This is not an announcement. This is not your bulletin. This is your billboard to the world proclaiming what your church believes, what your church does, that you love them, that you want to pray for them. If you're going to talk about prayer meeting, fine. Wednesday night, there's a prayer meeting. Do you have a prayer request? We would love to pray for you. Send us a message. Simple posts, remembering who your audience is. At a conference, a division, a union level, we recognize that these entities are there to serve the entities below them. You can still use these pages, though, to proclaim. Everything can lead to proclamation. Everything should have a strong call to action to encourage people to connect. You should be inviting them to either have a relationship with God, we should be asking them to have prayer requests, and we should unapologetically be inviting people to baptism. I don't just want them to know God, I want them to be a part of my family. And the Adventist Church is my family. So what we would like to do at the General Conference is we are trying to find a way to make available all of the assets that we use for our pages. We're trying to find a way that if you want to translate them into Korean or into Tagalog or into Malay, that you could take all of the assets that we have already created, all of the writing, and make them accessible to every division and union. That they can be used at local church levels, they can be used on your division pages, wherever you may want to use them. We're trying to figure out the structure in which to do this because it's hard to make open files available to everybody. So we're working out the logistics, and we hope that by the end of fourth quarter here that we will have a plan that we will convey to all of our division directors. But what my real vision is that when people go there to search Seventh-day Adventist Church, that they will find an official Adventist church page in every single language. This is a very big dream, and it started with Williams. Bless his heart. Right before GC session, he walked into my office and declared that we should have social media channels in 4 languages. And it was about 3 months before GC session. So before that, we had English, we kind of had Spanish, but we ended up with English, Spanish, French, and Portuguese. And in 3 months, we launched all of this at GC session, which was a little insane, but our team seems to like insane. So very much like insane. So now we're trying to figure out what are the next languages? How do we partner with our divisions so that we can have an official Seventh-day Adventist church page in Korean? So when somebody comes, they find this official page that can lead them on their journey to join the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Because remember, they are not going to necessarily find the local church. But if they come to the Adventist church page right now, if somebody in Korea comes to the Adventist church page in English, I don't know where to point them. I don't know the pastors in Korea. It's important that we localize this, that we have somebody who can help us at these different division and union levels with each language, so that every single person who searches on social media for the Seventh-day Adventist Church, they find us and they come to know God, they know the Bible, and they know the church. It's not going to make people happy, just like how we've said for a lot of these things. It's a challenge because we like to be advertisements. But the question is, are people really interacting with your advertisements? How many people are really engaging meaningfully with them? We go through the lot of work to post on social media, and it just sits there with like 4 likes. Why are we going through the work of having a team to just talk to ourselves? I want to challenge you to sit with your team, figure out how can we add some of these components in. As we've said repeatedly, it doesn't have to be overnight. You don't have to change your entire strategy. But how can you help people know God better on your pages? How can you help them to experience transformation? How can you help people know the Bible better? Maybe for the first time. Maybe they need to know how to defend their faith. How do you help them to fall in love with their church family? How do they know that this is the family that they want to be a part of? What is the love letter that you are sending them? How are you introducing them to the fact that they are a part of a local church, but they are also a part of a world church? I want to challenge each and every one of you to help people to know God, know the Bible, and to know their church, and to be unapologetic in the proclamation of the 3 angels' message through every single social media channel that you can.